You've reached the Signal Watch, movies, television, comics, and more. I'm your host, Ryan Steens. Join me and our cadre of co-contributors as we examine cultural artifacts of the 20th century, boldly explore the 21st, and try to put it all in perspective. Stay tuned. We're gonna try to make this work. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Signal Watch. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Steens, and with me today is an all-new guest, someone who's been referred to numerous times here on the podcast, but he's never been able to join us because he does not live in Austin, Texas. But thanks to the power of the internet, we are giving this a shot, and we will see if we can't have Stuart join us from...
Hi, I'm joining you from Kansas City.
Which is in Kansas State, I understand.
Oh, no. I hate to disabuse you of that notion, but in fact, Kansas City is in Missouri.
Oh.
I am in the fine state of Missouri as we speak.
Excellent. And so we've known each other online for years. We've seen each other in multiple states, I guess, at this point. But you want to talk a little about who you are and what you're up to?
Oh, no. Yes, hopefully I don't sound like I'm coming from far away.
No, you sound great.
I sound great. Okay. Who I am. My name's Stuart. I live in Kansas City. I am a former video store clerk and longtime movie nerd. I currently work for AMC Theaters because I did everything I could to get the only movie-related job you could find in the Midwest, basically. It's like the Hollywood of the Midwest in this tiny little spot where AMC Theaters has its headquarters, its global headquarters. And for them, I investigate fraud. And then I spend a lot of my time listening to podcasts and watching movies, parenting, and that kind of thing. You know? Yeah.
So Stuart has a wide interest in movies, tends to get out and see a lot more than I do, for sure. You managed to see things recently like Color from Space, right?
Yes.
Out of Space.
Yeah. That was very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was literally playing for one night here in Kansas City. So yeah,
one of my coworkers who has no significant other was going to see it for their Valentine's movie last night. So I'm
really
waiting.
That would be an interesting. Although I mean, the color pink does kind of show up.
That's what we agreed upon. Yes.
Yeah.
And we did Valentine's.
So it's Valentine's appropriate. That's the one thing about that movie that I was kind of iffy on was, color. The color out of space is something in prose is mysterious, but in a visual medium, you're like, yeah, that's like pink.
Yeah.
That's a known color.
I remember when John Carter was coming out as a movie and they were supposed to have whatever the ultraviolet, whatever. And they kind of skipped around that, but it was a lot of the same sort of thing of, whoops, this was described as indescribable, but now we have to show it.
But now it has to be describable. Right. Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about either John Carter today or Color Out of Space. We're talking about a movie you selected, which quite frankly surprised me as your first movie to talk about.
Because you hate it?
No, I thought you would be like, yeah, I'm going to jump in hard with like Godzilla or King Kong or I don't know, something else. But you didn't. You chose
Teen Wolf from 1985, not the MTV series, but the OG Teen Wolf, if you will. with Michael J.
geez.
Fox. Yes.
Yeah, and nor Teen Wolf 2.
Nor Teen Wolf 2, which in fact, as big a fan I am of Teen Wolf, I have actually never seen Teen Wolf 2.
Neither myself nor I think most of humanity.
I rented Teen Wolf 2 once, and I started playing it, and I got about 15 minutes in, and I was like, nope, I will keep my memories of Teen Wolf pure and not do this, because you could tell right away that it was just the same movie with a different character and a different sport and a different location, and you could tell it was one of those. It was of the time when a sequel was just, hey, let's do the same thing again
with less money.
Yeah, with less money. Right?
Which with this movie,
without the A-list cast, and yeah.
I mean, and we can talk about all of those things. I mean, it was interesting. I hadn't watched this movie since probably like the first or second year Jamie and I were like living together, I think. So I'm thinking more than 20 years ago. And it was frankly kind of bizarre to rewatch it because you realize this is a small kind of independent film.
Oh, totally. It was totally an independent film. It was shot for almost nothing. It was shot in like a month, and just locations that they could find around Pasadena. And it shows now. It shows a lot now. I guess I just didn't know enough when I was younger to sort of spot those things that make it really kind of show its seams.
Right.
But yeah, it was totally an independent movie, and it was one of the top grossers of that year. Like, I don't remember what position, but definitely like in the top 10. And there were a few weeks there where it was, Back to the Future was the number one movie at the box office, and Teen Wolf was right behind it, number 2, playing at the same time.
Yeah, it's a bizarre year, but also this kind of wave of the massive popularity of Michael J. Fox, which continues. People still love these movies all these years later. Go ahead. What
I guess had heard, reading about this movie and stuff over the years, is that he sort of became famous while they were shooting the movie. That they shot this before Back to the Future, and while Meredith Baxter Burney, if I'm remembering that name correctly, was on maternity leave, so they only had a few weeks of a window to do it. And during that time, I guess, while they were shooting it, Family Ties changed its time slot so that now it's closer to the Cosby Show. And so while they were shooting, he became like super famous, so that like they had to kind of corral the extras and hire more security and things like that in the final weeks of shooting, where they just couldn't keep people away from him. Versus, when they started shooting, he was a TV star, but he wasn't like Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, that explains a lot, because I can't imagine, given what it looks like the budget of this movie is, it's so strange watching it, knowing that he must have just taken it. Hopefully he was getting a percentage off the back end, which I'm sure he did very, very well if that was the case. I've
noticed that Michael J. Fox has been in all the stuff I've read about this movie, has been notably absent in the commentaries and things and interviews. And so I don't know if he, if it's like a point of shame for him. I don't know if it's like, oh, I'm sorry that I did this little crappy werewolf movie, or maybe it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I just know that the only thing that I remember reading, I remember reading an interview snippet long ago where he said, he wished he was making sort of more important films and not like a silly werewolf comedy, which he was doing at the time. And so it clearly, I feel like he still gave it his all. His performance is really good. Mm-hmm. And, all of his fellow performers from the movie, they speak very well of him. But it's just a little odd that I've just sort of never seen him talk about it. Whereas for Back to the Future, which came out around the same time, you see him all over the place, talking about that and doing interviews and doing appearances and all kinds of things, but never really talking about Teen Wolf that I've seen anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And who knows what his actual experience was filming it. I'm sure even just sitting in the chair and having to put on wolf makeup every
Oh
day
yeah,
for a
I'm
month
sure.
must have
Yeah.
been a nightmare. But yeah, so why did you end up picking this one of all of the movies you've seen? I'm curious.
Teen Wolf is an overlooked favorite for me. I guess people, it has kind of a cult following of people mostly around my age. I discovered it when I was like 9 years old at the video store.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people that like it, but it's not like, Michael J. Fox's other movies, notably Back to the Future, where it's this heavy nostalgia, constant references to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it would get more attention. I don't know. And plus I thought there's no pressure talking about Teen Wolf. There's no like,
we're going to start with the bar super low.
It's going to go down in history, right? As like, because it's a movie, I think it's a charming movie. I think it's a good movie for what it's trying to be. It's actually, I watched it again just recently because of this discussion, and it's pretty dated in some senses.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's good, but it's also, it doesn't try to do too much either. It's just, I don't know. It's simple.
Well,
it was a good recommendation title. When I worked at the video store,
mm-hmm.
if you hadn't seen Teen Wolf and that was the kind of movie you were looking for, if you were looking for like a high school comedy, that was a solid recommend for people. So
right. So I talked about how simple it was. I was a little surprised to see Jeff Loeb's name pop up as.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That was one of the other reasons I chose it, because I've listened to your podcast for a while, and there are times when your guest is a lot more enthusiastic about the title that is being discussed than you are, and I didn't want it to be. I didn't want to pick something you would hate. So I know that you're a fan of Commando,
right?
Right, and This is by the same two writers, Jeff Loeb and I think his name is Matthew Wiseman, Jeffrey Wise, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for not remembering now, but it's by the same writing duo that did Commando. So I thought, if you hadn't seen it in a while, that maybe that would, I don't know, be a point of mutual interest for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And because partially when I compare it to Commando, which actually Simon and I are supposed to be watching soon because there's this new Action Heroes documentary, 80s Action Heroes documentary.
Yeah, they did the horror one and then they're going to do a sci-fi one, mm-hmm. 80s sci-fi doc and 80s horror doc. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Commando to me is this like super stripped down, like they figured out what the beats were of an 80s action movie. And they said, it's going to just be that.
Yeah.
And like, we're not going to
really efficient,
right.
Really efficient at being what it is. Yeah.
And to me, this is in many ways the same thing. Something unusual happens to a wannabe in high school who is living, he has the girl next door is into him. Yeah. And we're going to have him go through the arc of who I am without this other thing, whether it's money or a cool car or I faked that I was a fighter pilot or whatever, you do in high school.
I haven't seen that one.
I'm thinking of Iron Eagle, and I think I'm munching some things.
Well, he didn't fake it. He actually was
he became a fighter pilot. Him and Chappie. That's Chappie.
And Styles was in that too.
Was he really?
Yeah, Styles.
Oh my God! I think we got our next movie, my friend.
I'm blanking on the name, but yeah, the actor who played Styles, I basically knew him from Iron Eagle and Teen Wolf, and stole all of his scenes in both.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of this. Once you've seen enough of these, that's part of it coming back to as an adult. How I saw this movie initially in the theater. I saw it during the theatrical release. And my real memory of it is, well, one, trying to figure out why he was more interested in the drama girl than Boof. I remember that because I was like, they're both fine. What's your problem? But the other thing I remember was not exactly the movie, but I had forgotten how much like adult type stuff is in it, like Styles getting the beer keg and like the 7 minutes in heaven and what, the shaving cream or whipped cream wrestling going on. And then of course he as the wolf makes it with the blonde girl, in the dressing room, which there's nobody else in this play. Which we can talk about that later.
Right. Where are the other cast members of the play? Yeah. There's no other
one-woman show except for Teen Wolf walking on. And I had forgotten all of that. I mean, I'd seen it and been like, and I'm standing there at church at age like 10 or whatever, because 85, I would have been about 10. And with my parents, and these other parents come up and they're like, is there anything in this movie that is a reason we shouldn't take our son to see this movie for his birthday? Their son was a year or two younger than me. And I don't know if I forgot, but I also strongly suspect I would have been covering for myself. Because my parents never knew what I was seeing. I just went to the movies and they dropped us off, or we rode a bike over there.
I told several lies like that. Whenever the parents were like, is there anything objectionable? It's like, no, it's fine.
Squeaky clean.
It's fine.
They just go to the malt shop.
They go to this. They go to this high school party where there was like butter wrestling on the floor. So my memory is that I did regard this movie as a little kind of with an edge to it, with an adult edge to it, like not exactly like a Porky's, but kind of getting to that. Because the stuff at the high school party especially was very I don't know, more mature than I was ready for, and I thought it was cool to see. And I just saw this with my son last week, and I did fast forward through a couple of parts there because he was like, my son's 5, and he was like, what are they doing? Like, well, we're supposed to go in the closet and kiss in the dark. Why? It's just something teenagers do. Let's see what happens next. Let's see what happens in the next scene. It's really good. I like it. But I mean, the adult sort of content of it was an interesting, or was something that made it a little bit more attractive to me, I guess, because it was clearly not, made for a children's audience, but at the same time, it was back in the era where studios would make things for an adult audience or a teenage audience, clearly, and with like R-rated content, and then children would latch onto it, like Nightmare on Elm Street type stuff, and then they would start marketing it to children. And so, I mean, I remember the Teen Wolf animated series. Yeah. So even right. So I mean, apparently that happened where a lot of kids like me saw this movie in the video store, thought it was pretty cool, and there was enough support behind it that they started saying, "Hey, kids are liking this. Let's make a cartoon out of it." And they did stuff like that all the time. I mean, there was like a Tales from the Crypt Keeper cartoon, and there were,
there's a RoboCop cartoon and a Rainbow cartoon.
Right. I mean, that stuff is like hard R. So, and there's nothing like that in Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf is still pretty tame. But there's definitely stuff in there that makes it skew toward a teen rather than kid audience that I would say is not in a lot of other like Michael J. Fox type comedies at the time.
Well, even in like the butter wrestling scene, not to dwell on it too much, but there's also like Styles' like sidekick who's just a high school girl standing there in lingerie. right. Which to me was like by far the most risque thing to happen.
And
in
looks
the movie.
Totally bored.
Yeah.
She's got the intentionally bored assistant look.
It's like you don't get to do that until you're at least a junior in college.
So, I mean, the other thing is that I noticed looking back at it now is it looks a little less risque, I guess, because all these people are in their like late 20s, right? I mean, they don't look like high school kids, which I didn't know the difference when I was a kid. But as I'm watching it now, I'm like, yeah, these people are not high school kids. So.
No. I think they went to the local junior college or put out a flyer at a bar or something.
The other thing you mentioned, you said you were about 10. I would have been 9 or 10 when I saw this, and that you didn't understand why he didn't just go for the girl next door. And I agree. I mean, I just took it as a sort of a trope of the movies that she's conventionally attractive. She looks like a Barbie doll. So he's going to want her because that's what characters in movies do. But for me, the idea that there was a girl who lived next door who was like, who would talk to you, who would be your friend and was interested in you and you could have conversations with and you had history with, I was like, what? That was like a fantasy to me. That was more of a wish fulfillment type fantasy than being in the dressing room with the girl. I was like, if you could ever just be legit friends with a girl, and
no, I completely agree.
I was like, no, man, that's the dream. Why are you going after this other girl? This girl likes you and is interested in you and wants to talk to you. Talk to her back. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, don't pursue the girl who rolls her eyes every time you get near her and is clearly, dating the caveman. So at 10, I mean, which is, how simple the movie is, right? It was like, you just can't get your head around this like very obvious setup that everyone else is like, right, we got it. It's movie shorthand. He'll end up with her at the end. That's the arc of these movies.
Yeah.
But yeah. She didn't do a ton after this. It looks like she married a producer, and then, then she kind of has disappeared into the Hollywood Hills to because if you look at her IMDb, it's mostly talking about her like PTA involvement. Which is, it's like, I guess she has moved on.
Honestly, I don't remember seeing her ever again after this.
No.
But yeah, she was great. She was very good. She did, the girl next door really well. She was sweet. She was sincere. She was, like I said, she actually cared about what he thought. She would wait at his house for him to go to walk to school with her. I mean, I was like, my God, this is amazing.
Yeah, I guess it's the whole, you don't want to be a part of any club that wants you sort of.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
But it's like, and even some of the stuff in it that, like him coming home and finding her playing basketball with his dad. It's like, that's actually fairly realistic for high school when you're like, I remember coming home and there were sometimes girls at my house who I knew or whatever. And it just being like, oh, hey,
Yeah, I mean,
I guess this is happening.
I can't, I mean, my high school, my high school experience is very different from this movie, but also removed from it so much because I never really, for me, this movie I associate with childhood and fits very well, I think, with my childhood view of what high school was going to be, but not at all with what high school turned out to be.
Yeah.
So his relationship with his dad, I think, is one of the main anchors of the movie, and him sort of trying out ways that are how do I say, him trying to figure out who he wants to be in ways that are going to take him further away from his dad, and then coming back again, is a nice story, and not compatible with my experience, I guess. My experience is high school was a very alienating time for me with my parents, and I just sort of never went back.
Because you never wolfed out, man.
No, I never wolfed out, yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, and everyone has kind of a different experience, and that's part of the interesting thing of these high school movies is sometimes they have this very safe, closed circuit sort of storytelling that happens, and then you have like The Outsiders or whatever, where things obviously do not come back to hugging mom and dad or whatever. So at the end, but yeah, it's. I'll be honest. Like when you first said we're gonna watch Teen Wolf, I was like, woof. It's been a while, but
Whoa,
doing it for Stuart.
Ironic? Is that an ironic?
Oh, it was not an ironic. It is now. I enjoyed it enough. I couldn't believe how much I remembered it for a movie I hadn't seen in 20 years. Because I know at one point in my life, if it was on HBO, in the summer, I probably watched it in bits and pieces, over and over and over. Because that was like, yeah, this is safe stuff to have while these latchkey kids are home for the day, sort of thing. And the parents didn't know any different. It had a cartoon, so how risque or whatever it might be, but right. It does have him, threatening the guy at the liquor store, sort of, to get his keg of beer, which I remember us thinking was super hilarious.
I still think it would be funny.
I mean, it's funny, but I remember us being like, just saying, I would like a keg of beer was like the funniest thing. And it's like,
well, first of all, this movie taught me what a keg is. Because I didn't know what a keg of beer was, because I was 9, right? And the other thing is that this movie falls into that category that you had pointed out in one of your earlier podcasts, where a character goes and asks and orders a beer,
right?
Just a beer, right? He never, and I noticed that I had never noticed that in any. I mean, it never had been called to my attention how kind of ridiculous it is. Like one of those things of like characters never saying goodbye when they hang up the phone and things like that, normal things that people do. But I was watching it again this time, and he goes to order the keg of beer. I was like, oh, it's that thing, the thing that Ryan said.
That's right. So let's talk about styles.
They should have got a licensing agreement,
Oh, right. I'm sure everyone was like, this is high schoolers buying beer? No.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So styles in the movie, to me, I think works pretty well. I noticed maybe this time more than I ever have that Styles they couldn't quite figure out if he was trying things and they were often failing. Like that was his character thing. Like he just was kind of like the eternal optimist of like, he's the one high-fiving people going to the locker room trying to get money at one point. And like he goes through this whole arc of needing the keg of beer, and then of course shows up and there's already 20 kegs of beer stacked up.
Right.
And to me, that's hilarious and rings true, right?
All this absolutely.
Effort, you're like,
he wants so much to be important and needed. Right. He's clearly on the outside of every group, including the group of outsiders that he's the leader of. And he just wants to be the guy, who has the connections and the guy who knows things and the guy, and that's his version, I think, of Scott wanting to be the popular basketball player or whatever. Styles, I think, just wants to be the guy, right, in the know, right? And he clearly can never be. As much as he tries, people will still like, have take advantage of him, but he never will be.
Yeah. The closest it ever seems in the movie, like he accomplishes it, is during the butter wrestling scene when he's kind of the ringleader of all of MC. That.
Right? Yeah. But there's still, when you see him in the locker room too, is really revealing to me. I mean, he's not friends with his teammates at his own school, and he's not friends with the team with the team. So he's like, okay, I struck out here. I'm gonna go into the other locker room, and even the other guys don't like him either. So yeah, I totally knew guys like that too, and he's it's a funny character to watch. It's not as much a funny character to know.
Right.
Yeah.
The coach on the team to me still holds up as a hilarious character.
Oh yeah, he's great. Yeah. His like 3 rules for success in life or whatever are just pulled out of nowhere and are fantastic.
Do you happen to remember them?
Oh gosh. Never play cards with somebody who has a tattoo of a city.
I think it was never play cards with someone who has the name of a city.
The name of a city, that's right.
Yeah.
Something about a tattoo of a woman. I don't remember what it was. Don't do something. And then it was never get up any earlier than like 12 o'clock. No, I don't remember anymore. It's just sad because I used to know this movie so well that I could quote it inside and out, but it's been, probably a decade or so since I saw it before the other day.
Well, the other, and he comes, Michael J. Fox comes to him, Scott Howard comes to him with his issues. He's like, he's got to talk to somebody who's not his dad.
Right.
And he's, can't you see I've got problems of my own? Just
right. He just doesn't, and that's what's great about him is he's bad as a coach. He's bad as a mentor. I assume he's bad as a teacher. I know he's just bad at everything except for, coming up with ad-libbed, I assume ad-libbed one-liners. The other thing I love is he's while the games are playing, he's eating like hard-boiled eggs on the court. Mm-hmm. You see him leaving the eggshells on the court, on the basketball court. At one point, he asks his assistant to go get him some salt in the middle of the game. He doesn't care about what's going on. He's not shouting at the referee. At one point, he tries to forfeit a game so they could beat the rush hour traffic getting home. Which, by the way, this town does not seem like a place that has much traffic. This seems like it's supposed to be some sort of Midwestern, small town or suburb or something like that. I can't really imagine him sitting. At no point in the movie did they show a highway.
Yeah, right.
Or a building taller than 2 stories, right? So yeah, he was a great addition to the film, I thought.
Yeah, there's the shot of kind of like as they're not doing well at the beginning of the season, of like him like eating his egg there, and it's this like nice wide shot, and the beaver mascot is just like hanging like in the bleachers, just like looking off at something else that's not even the game. And there's these 2 characters in the movie, and I looked it up. The characters' names are Gina and Tina. And they're in several scenes, and they're just 2 girls who never say anything, and they're kind of like dressed a little like Madonna-ish, the lace and all that, sunglasses inside. And I was like, yeah, that's a nice 80s touch there. Those girls never actually existed. Well, they probably did actually exist at my high school, now that I think of back to certain people, but yeah.
I think everything in the movie really just exists in so much as Scott notices them, right? So I mean, to me it's consistent with that sort of high school experience of you don't actually notice everyone, right? But you might blend together the memory of those kind of girls who are always dressed like Madonna and hanging out at every social gathering, and just sort of blend them together into a stock character, or those 1 or 2 stock characters. And so because that's his memory of it, that's what's in the movie, right? Yeah. Well, the other thing I like about the coach is it sort of highlights the idea that nobody's really going to solve Scott's problems for him. He goes to the coach to sort of say, and I read something that said that scene was originally later in the film, right? As the way it was re-edited, it's early in the film to give you an idea of what his struggles are, that he's this bored Midwestern lower middle class kid who just doesn't want to be ordinary, right? And he's going through normal teenage angst. Who am I going to be? Who am I going to identify with? And so the way it comes off now. The way it originally was written was when he goes to the coach and says, "I'm going through changes," he meant literally he's going through changes, right? But yeah, what I like about it is that it establishes kind of early on that he's kind of, whether he succeeds or fails is kind of up to him, right? Nobody's going to solve his problems for him. There's no magical guidance counselor or teacher or mentor figure who's going to come in and Mr. Miyagi him out of there, right? The coach is just like, well, yeah, that sucks.
So I have curiously my own sort of version of that scene. Well, sort of. But when I was in high school, I played basketball freshman year. And then sophomore year, I moved schools and I was playing again. And I was like 6'4" or something like that. Of course, they were going to just add me to the team. So, but I was kind of like, I kind of didn't like the guys on the team for the most part. I was riding the pine. So I'm like, driving all over Houston, going to these games and then just sitting there. And while my team, by the way, the team went 1-21 this season.
Wow.
yeah, it's hard to be that bad.
This is actually pretty similar to the movie.
Well, and so I go to the coach. I decide like I'm not doing this anymore. So I go into the like after like the 6th game or something like that, and I think I'd only played like 10 minutes in like 3 of the games. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm cutting my losses. And so I went to the coach and I was like, yeah, coach, I'm dropping off the team. But before I could do that, I walk in and he's manually sharpening a pencil. He doesn't even have an electric pencil sharpener. It's like an old grind one. And when I'm just standing there, I was like, coach, I got to talk to you. He's like, hang on a minute. And I watch him sharpen like 3 pencils before he finally turns around. And he's like, okay, what can I do for you? And I'm like,
is that just a power play?
I have no idea. Why
can't you listen to some kid and sharpen pencils at the same time?
That was just that coach. He was the same coach who thought, anyway, you don't want to get into bad coaching, but he was really the golf coach. He really didn't know anything about basketball, and nor how basketball had changed from the 70s to what was now like the early 90s. Where it was like a more physical game and stuff. And so he told my mom at some point, it looked like I'd never played basketball. I'm doing air quotes there. Because I would body check people, which is what everybody did, which is why we were losing games. And he was coaching us not to do this. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'm quitting. I'm going to go do the school play.
Hey!
But I did not do it to pursue a popular blonde girl. There were no there were popular blonde girls in drama, but that was not why I went to go do it. But yeah, I might as well have told him, coach, I'm planning to go be in a drag show, and my name's going to be Chesty LaRue. It did not. His eyes just got like big and kind of confused as I was telling him my game plan. And he's like, yeah.
Oh, he didn't try to talk you out of it?
Not after I told him I was going to go do drama. No.
Huh. No. Well, I think that scenario is not uncommon. I mean, and that's kind of part of why the movie works is when you're in high school, you try out different things, right? Mm-hmm. You're not yet who you're going to be. And so there's all these sort of different clubs and cliques and tracks that your life can go in, and different people you can hang out with, and different identities you can kind of try on, like outfits. And which is why I think part of what I think the movie was trying to do, and in the sense of werewolf is a pretty handy metaphor for transformation, right? So yeah, that whole deal of like, I don't think I want to be a basketball player anymore. It didn't have to be basketball. It just could have been whatever he was. I don't want to be whoever I am. I want to be something else. Right. And I can totally identify with that, even though I never went and told my basketball coach I was going to quit the team.
Right. Which, I mean, believe me, that sharpening of the pencils made it all way easier. I was like, you have really, like, if you were going to argue with me, I'm not on board with you anymore. I do remember what I was going to bring up, which because we've been talking about this movie from kind of a certain perspective, but it's absurd, right? You'd mentioned it's a werewolf is a good thing for change. I do remember going to see it as a kid and being like, "Where are the news vans? Where are the ET like scientists to show up and quarantine the Howard House?"
So I think that was a conscious choice that they did, and I had read that originally he does become more famous, and there's a scene that they didn't shoot where he goes on the Tonight Show, and the scene where that's left in the movie where it's like he has the headline of the local paper, and during the montage that shows how popular he's getting. And the kids are all checking out the local paper that was originally supposed to be Time Magazine, apparently. So, that
sounds very 80s, and I'm kind of glad they didn't do that whole arc of 80s.
Right, it's exactly like the montage from Ghostbusters, right?
Right.
Where it's like, look, Omni, magazine, or Time Magazine. Here's People Magazine. Here's all the covers of the magazines they're on that And I think that it was a good choice not to do that. Even though it made it somewhat less realistic. But to me, realism isn't a primary concern when you're talking about a werewolf movie.
Yeah.
A werewolf, because I think that would have sidetracked everything, and it would have made it more about him dealing with fame and less about his own personal journey, and keeping it all inside the confines of a small town makes it a lot more sort of fairy tale like.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, I don't know, it's a stronger metaphor for me, because the bit where he's talking to Boof, she's walking him home, and she's talking about the time that he wanted to run away from home, and she didn't want him to go alone, and so she went with him when they were younger kids. But the problem was he wasn't allowed to cross the street, and so they just went around the block over and over again until it was time to come in because the street lights were off. To me, that's like a metaphor for the whole movie, right? I mean, it's like he wants to get out of this small existence, and he sort of dips his toe in it a little bit, but he's afraid. He figures out that it's more than he bargained for. He figures out that when you're not just ordinary, when you're special, I think people use you, right? People don't see you for you anymore. They see what they can get from you. And that includes, his close friends as well. And so he just decides, you know what? I'm good. And I'm gonna just go back to being me. And instead of being, liked for what I can do, I'm just going to try to be the best, not that great basketball player I can be and still be okay. I'm just going to be the best friend I can be and still be okay. And it's that same kind of, confined to going around the block, ethos. That keeping it in the small town, I think is I don't know, part of its charm for me.
Yeah. I think it really works. I think it, as you said, it would have gotten really diluted and into another 80s movie about someone disappearing into fame. And, depending on the rating of it, if he now did, he's going to do his drug spiral because it's a rated R movie, those sorts of things. But I think it, for what it's trying to do, it really works. It is interesting to see it, partially because it looks like we were talking about the budget at the beginning being lower, and that they, tried to shoot this all really fast and dirty, and they, of course, tried to do the same thing again with like Teen Witch, and you kind of laugh about Teen Witch looks like so cheap or whatever, like it's a knockoff of Teen Wolf, and you're like, these two movies have way more in common than you are wanting to accept. Like Teen Witch, everyone rags on because of the rapping scene, rightfully so, but which is amazing. Have you ever seen Teen Witch?
I have seen Teen Witch. Yeah, not until I was actually teen myself, but yeah.
I didn't actually see it till about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
What's the hubbub about Teen Witch?
Because I think the deal was, as a kid, I watched a lot of movies, but I was fairly turned off by movies with a female lead. Like a high school comedy. Then if I perceived that it was, in quotes, for girls, then I was less likely to see it. And a lot of that stuff I've kind of caught up with, and seen that I actually missed a lot of good stuff. But yeah, at the time I would have kind of just walked right on by it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd never even heard of it till probably like 2005 or something like that, when, the internet started having videos on it. And it, like, one of the first things to come across it for me was whatever it is, the rapping sequence from that. But, yeah, it's, I think it has this interesting legacy as a movie, because they, you did have like the Teen Witch, and then, we talked about the sequel and the cartoon, which I'm shocked is not streaming on Hulu or something. Because I think that's...
Well, Shout Factory was supposed to come out with a DVD set a few years ago, because I remember that because I was excited and had my, pre-order trigger finger ready. And then at some point they made this announcement where they were like, well, we've decided to do Turbo Teen instead. Well, apparently there's some issues with legal, rights or something. So, and it didn't pan out. So maybe, hopefully still to come. They did, Shout Factory did do the Beetlejuice animated series, which was better than I remembered. So
yeah, I don't honestly think I've ever seen the cartoon of Beetlejuice, but yeah, and then of course he had the MTV show, which ran for a number of years, which I was shocked when I saw the first trailer. I heard, oh, MTV's going to do this like TV show of Teen Wolf, and I was
which is where our new Superman is from.
Right.
Right.
Bizarrely. Yeah. I mean, again, I've never seen the MTV show, but I guess I've
never seen an episode. I saw the previews and marketing stuff, and I was like, this is not for me. So thanks, but I'll pass.
Yeah. It seems like it came out kind of on the heels of like the Twilight, stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It has a very kind of Twilight, Buffy kind of feel about it. And I honestly, I liked Buffy and I liked Angel, but I kind of got enough of that kind of thing from Buffy itself. And I was ready to just sort of move on.
Yeah. And I haven't gone to go look to see is this like a branch of the Howard family? Like what is the actual tie? Or did they just go, no, it is another thing that's about a teen that is a wolf, and that is it.
Yeah,
that is the connection.
I don't know. So. I honestly don't know. I mean, it might have as much to do with Teen Wolf as Teen Wolf had to do with Michael Landon's I Was a Teenage Werewolf, right? Which is basically, hey, teenage werewolf, let's do that.
It's a interesting franchise to have tried to do that with. I guess it made sense at the time. It does seem like Teen Wolf is something that, because of the kind of Jeff Loeb using those kind of universal threads of the teen movie, it could be relaunched, and they easily could make a PG or version or something for Disney Plus or Hulu or something.
Yeah, I mean, well, and they were just doing, I think, cartoons of pretty much every popular comedy back. There was a Bill and Ted animated series. There was a Back to the Future animated series. I mean, it was just what happened. I think once a property hit us above a certain number, somebody said, "Hey, have we turned this into a cartoon yet?"
Yeah. Which had to have been driving them crazy with Star Wars at the time. But come on, George, just let us do it badly.
Yeah. Oh, I watched Ewoks.
Yeah.
And droids. So.
As did I. Yeah, I was shocked to find out people did not love the Ewoks cartoon. I was like, no, it's great. You don't love Ewoks? What? But yeah, it's. I do think that if someone wanted to do it as a Netflix movie or something now, it just wouldn't be that hard. Partially because it's been 30. How long? 25 years? 35 years since
35. This is the 35th anniversary this year. Yeah.
So, I mean, if they wanted to put it out and have, a reboot, it could be Scott Howard's children or whatever that they'd want to do.
Netflix has been doing a lot of stuff from like the late 90s. As like there's a new Spirit animated show,
Horse.
The horse, right?
Okay,
right.
This explains why my coworker was talking about Spirit the horse the other day as I was
when I
walking
saw that,
by.
I was like, "Really? Does anybody remember that?" Yeah. So I mean, it's not. And Spy Kids, that's the other one. I mean, Spy Kids was back from like the late 90s, early aughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a new Spy Kids cartoon on Netflix.
Oh,
so they're really kind of mining the recent history, like 20 years ago history, for any kind of familiar IP that they can say that the parent, because I guess my theory is that they're counting on the parents to see it and go, oh, watch this with me, because no kid is going to care.
Right.
Yeah,
Spy Kids is great, or it was. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what happened when they made a Fast and Furious animated show.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a Fast and Furious animated cartoon starring Vin Diesel's nephew, I think.
Okay.
And I saw that, and I immediately was like, we're going to watch kids get in here. Turn off the YouTube. It's time to watch Fast and Furious with your old man. And they're like, what are you talking about? But yeah, they don't care. I mean, right. they were moderately entertained by it, but it was clearly I was the one who wanted to watch it.
All clicks are the same clicks as far as they're concerned. Yeah.
No, but with Teen Wolf, that was contemporary. So I just think there were a lot of kids like me who saw it at the video store and asked their parents to rent it and saw it HBO or basic cable, and there were enough of those kids that they said, hey, we could, sell a few breakfast cereals with a season or two of this. So
right. And then, it followed this arc of like, I would see it at like Target and stuff, and originally for full price, and then eventually it's in that $5 wall of DVDs at Target. And even lately, I don't feel like I've really seen it much. And so when you mentioned it's the 35th anniversary, it does kind of feel like, if someone wanted to, whoever owns the rights wanted to goose it a little bit. I watched it streaming for free not for free. I do pay for Amazon Prime.
On Prime, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so if you're looking around, listeners, and you want to find a copy of it and go, I'm not sure I want to pay for Teen Wolf here in the year of our Lord 2020, you do have options. So, not that I ever have a hard time actually paying the $2.99 for a rental, because that's what it cost us to rent movies from Blockbuster, people. The inflation is not caught up. It's a really easy to find at this point still. So hopefully Jeff Loeb gets a nickel every time we watch it. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's my favorite movie from 1985. But I was pleasantly surprised going back and watching it, especially because I was not particularly looking forward to firing it up. And I was like, nah, this is all right.
Teen Wolf for me has just always been like a perennial classic. Classic in terms of, for me, classic. It was one of my original movies that I had on VHS, my then very young VHS collection. Mm-hmm. And I watched it from probably 1986, constantly. And I spent a lot of time, living in places like overseas where there wasn't a lot of television. So I depended a lot on my VHS collection to keep me entertained. And so the movies that I owned, I watched over and over and over again, sometimes to the point where I could actually, quote pretty much the whole movie back to myself if I was somewhere where I couldn't, or I was, stuck somewhere and I couldn't. Back then, we didn't have the internet for podcasts and things like that to keep us entertained. So this was one of those movies that I just knew inside and out, and sort of, assumed that everyone else did for a long time. And then come to find out, no, everybody really likes Michael J. Fox, and everybody really loves Back to the Future and Family Ties, but pretty much everybody's forgotten about this.
Yeah. It's funny. I think we're going to do Back to the Future here in the not too distant future, but and we could talk about it a lot more then. The things that I do not love about Michael J. Fox, because I was the one rando when I was like 10 who was kind of like about Michael J. Fox, partially because I didn't watch Family Ties or any of that, was he doesn't really do those things as much in this movie. The stuff that drove me crazy when I was a kid is all the stuff they do. So they have the dramatic arc of like, why isn't he paying attention to Boof? And it's like, well, that's so at the end he will pay attention to Boof,
right?
But just drove me nuts when I was a kid. But that's not the like quirky stuff that he does that I am not as big of a fan of as America was in the 80s and through to today. So like usually we end up talking at this point about something that we forgot, like Urban Surfin. Yeah.
So that was a part of one of the things about this movie that attracted me to it as a kid. And again, the same with Back to the Future. And it seemed to be a trope of 80s comedies, is they always have to work in some sort of dangerous thing that the main character is doing, that they are now encouraging young children across America to do, such as surfing on the top of vans or skiing off of the back of Jeeps on skateboards. So in Teen Wolf, that was one of the things that established Styles as this sort of party animal character, that he sent caution to the wind and would go up on top of their van and just pretend like he's surfing and stand up there while they're going, maybe 30 miles an hour down the side streets of whatever suburb or small town they're in, never to the notice of any police officers nearby, apparently. And that was, I it worked on me. At once I thought I unironically thought that makes him really cool. I watch it now and I think, man, what an idiot. But yeah, as a 9-year-old, I was like, man, that guy is cool. Look what he's doing, that dangerous stunt up there. And I had seen later that they didn't really have the money to do stunts or anything like that. So that really was Jerry Levine as Styles up on top of that van with like a piano wire wrapped around his waist and down his pant leg through a hole in the top of the van. So yeah. And now when if you watch it, on Blu-ray, you can kind of see that wire sticking out of his leg. When they get to the werewolf doing it, they do have a stunt double for that because, of course, he's doing backflips and all kinds of weird stuff. But yeah, when it's Styles doing it, it's really him, and that effect really worked on me to just sort of sell the sort of the fun of the movie. It sold also the idea of why Scott would kind of go along with this guy, because he has this infectious sort of, yeah, come along with me and have fun and do all this fun stuff. And the other thing I remember is that that for me was my introduction to the song Surfin' USA.
Oh, okay.
And it was forever in my, forever. If I hear Surfin' USA, I will think of Teen Wolf and I will think of the Urban Surfin'. From now until the day I die, no other imagery will pop in I will not think of, people on a beach somewhere. I will not think of people with actual surfboards on water. I will think of Styles or Scott as a wolf up there on the top of the van.
As a kid watching it, I don't remember what I thought other than, that's crazy, sort of thing. And teens sure get up to shenanigans. But I did find, like, when I got to college, occasionally just dropping the reference to anytime you were in a fairly large vehicle, saying to someone, you should Teen Wolf it up on the roof. Everyone always knew what I was talking about.
Well, somebody actually made that reference in real life. So when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, so I'm in Kansas City, as you mentioned. We're watching the Super Bowl a few weeks ago, and as soon as the Chiefs won, there's pandemonium. You could hear gunshots, you could hear screaming, and I'm in like a kind of a small, quiet little neighborhood. I'm not in the middle of the city by any measure, and we went outside, and people are just outside in the street, woo, and somebody drove by on top of a car, and one of our neighbors was like, hey, the guy was Teen Wolf in it. So I mean, people get that reference. That's the thing that they remember from this movie, I think, almost as much as the fact that the guy was a werewolf. It was doing
this incredibly ill-advised thing.
It's but memorable.
Yeah. Perfect.
I guess the other thing I wanted to mention about this movie that struck me watching it now is I really like how it drives home this this idea of how much of how we behave is in reaction to how people treat us and what they expect from us, right? And we're watching this movie as a kid and mostly just thinking, yeah, this would be really cool to be popular, and yeah, this would be really cool to be able to like go down the hall and high five everybody and have the teachers all smile at you and stuff, and be able to play basketball and have people bring you gifts or whatever, and I'm watching it now, and and it's interesting how, like, even the teachers at the school, they expect him to be a star, and so he behaves like a star, and the director of the play, expects him to behave a certain way, and so he behaves that way, and the way that he acts really is a reflection of how of what people expect from him. And I don't know, I just thought that was a it struck me as more of a layer of the purposeful layer of the film than I had realized at the time, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what he's purposely throwing off at the end of the movie, is when he's saying, I don't want to just be, what people expect. I don't want to just be something that people can get, whatever they can get from me. I want to be me, I want to be around people that value me for me, for the contributions that I can deliver as myself. So yeah, I mean, it's not, it's a little after school especially, but it's a kind of a timeless message, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, if someday we can break down what are the teen movie, main storylines that you can expect. It's just a colorful way to get back to that point of as you are finding yourself, young people, wear the trappings of fame and glory. But anyway, I think it's probably a pretty good place to wrap it up. Any final thoughts on Teen Wolf?
Gosh, I feel like I should have saved a final thought.
Yeah, no. Do go back and give it a shot. It is a weird indie movie with a werewolfy Michael J. Fox. So how bad could it be? All right. Thanks, Stuart.
Right on. Thanks.
I was blinded by the pain, running wild through the rain in a parody of ecstasy. I was inches from the edge, fingers clinging to the ledge again. I never thought I'd win.
That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed this podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. You can drop comments on this podcast and let us know what you think. We do have a Signal Watch Patreon, and if you're so moved, we'd most certainly appreciate your support. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies. You've got to be kind.